right now somewhere near you, maybe closer than you think. There's a building with no windows, armed security, and enough electricity running through it to power a small city. You've never been inside. You probably don't even know it's there. But everything you streamed this morning, every AI prompt you've run, every photo you've backed up to the cloud, it lived in that building. We're talking about data centers, and they are quietly reshaping our economy, our environment, and our communities all at the same time. Industry giants like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are pouring billions into them. Federal governments are fast tracking their expansion. And local residents, some of them are pushing back hard. So, who wins? Who pays? And what does it actually cost to keep the digital world running? Let's deep dive into this explainer.
Every time you stream a movie or jump on a video call or even ask an AI a question, you're plugging into this massive, hidden physical world. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the powerful engines that run our digital lives, and you'll see the very real conflict they're creating in communities all over the world. This is the data center dilemma. It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer? Well, it's not what you think. See, the cloud isn't actually floating up in the sky. It lives inside these colossal, power-hungry buildings that are just springing up everywhere, from rural fields to quiet suburban towns. So what exactly are they? They're called data centers, and you can think of them as the true engines of the digital age. But we're not just talking about some warehouse with a bunch of computers. Oh no, these are hyper-specialized, climate-controlled fortresses working tirelessly 24/7 to make sure your online world is always on, always right there when you need it. Now, for a long time, the story around these digital engines was pretty simple. It was all about pure, unadulterated progress. They were seen as these quiet, humming symbols of massive growth, high-tech jobs, and the kind of innovation that really pushes all of us forward. And the scale of this whole thing is, well, it's hard to get your head around. We're talking about a projected $3 trillion in global investment by the year 2030. Just let that sink in. That's more than the entire economy of countries like the UK or India. It's just an undeniable signal of how absolutely critical this infrastructure has become. And this is exactly why towns and cities have been rolling out the red carpet. I mean, these places are the physical backbone for everything from the AI revolution to the movies you stream at night. For the local communities, they promise thousands of jobs, a huge boost to tax revenue, and they often bring desperately needed upgrades to local power grids and fiber networks. But here's the catch. That powerful, gleaming engine of progress, it runs on an incredible amount of raw fuel. We're talking electricity and water. And now, communities are really starting to feel the immense strain from its constant voracious appetite. The downside is becoming impossible to ignore. Just think about the energy demand alone. By 2028, data centers could be eating up to 12% of all electricity in the entire United States. That is a truly staggering figure. And get this, a huge portion of that power isn't even for the computing itself. It's for cooling, running these massive HVAC systems 24/7 just to keep thousands of servers from literally melting down. And that relentless thirst for energy has a direct and, frankly, heavy environmental cost. We're talking millions of tons of CO2 emissions every single year. And that cooling I just mentioned, it can consume billions of cubic meters of water, a lot of times in areas that are already struggling with drought. On top of that, they rely on huge backup diesel generators for emergencies, which pump nasty pollutants like nitrogen oxides into the air. This is the hidden environmental price tag for our data. But this isn't just some abstract environmental problem. It has a very real, very direct human cost. In some areas, residents have seen their power bills jump by over 10% as the grid just struggles to keep up. The constant low-frequency hum from these facilities is causing stress and insomnia for the people who live next door. And studies are showing these centers are often built in lower-income and minority communities, places with cheaper land and historically less political power to fight back, putting the health burden squarely on the most vulnerable. So this growing tension has kicked off what is basically a modern-day David versus Goliath conflict. It's pitting some of the world's largest, most powerful corporations against local residents who are just trying to protect their communities and their quality of life. On one side, you have the hyperscalers. These are the Goliaths, right? The tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, backed by massive global investment firms. And on the other side, well, you have everyday folks from suburban Virginia to rural Ohio who are now getting organized and backed by grassroots coalitions and national advocacy groups. They're the ones fighting back. And this quote, I think, just perfectly captures the feeling on the ground. The big promises of economic prosperity are often clashing with the harsh daily reality of living next to one of these massive industrial facilities. For a lot of people, the benefits they were promised just don't outweigh the day-to-day costs. So it's no surprise that when you look at public opinion, it's pretty clearly divided. People generally get the economic upside, for sure, but they have deep and growing concerns about the negative hits on the environment and their own personal quality of life. It's a classic case of benefits for some, but burdens for many others. So what started as these little local zoning fights is now escalating into a fierce national debate. It's forcing governments at all levels to walk this treacherous tightrope between encouraging game-changing tech and, protecting their citizens and the environment. And what we're seeing is this really fascinating split in how they're handling it. At the federal level, the frantic push is to win the AI race at all costs, streamline permits, offer huge tax breaks. But then at the local and state level, you see officials responding to intense pressure from the people who actually live there, and they are slamming on the brakes, passing moratoriums and demanding much, much stricter environmental reviews. But out of all this conflict, a really powerful new strategy is starting to emerge. See, communities are moving beyond just saying no. Now, they're demanding a seat at the table. They're rejecting these secretive backroom deals, and instead, they're pushing for legally binding community benefit agreements. These deals make sure a real portion of the project's immense wealth gets invested directly back into the local area, funding things like clean energy, parks, and job training programs. Which, of course, brings us to the central question we all have to face now. Our collective digital appetite is only growing, right? It's being fueled by things like AI that demand even more power, more data. So how do we fuel that future without sacrificing the health of our planet and the quality of life in our own neighborhoods? That is the great data dilemma.